Sam lay on the hard floor of his workshop, staring at the metal roof above him. The roof had once shined silver, but now it was covered in dust and rust. Rainwater leaked through the edges and dropped onto the ground in slow taps. The sound filled the silence of the room. Sam did not move. He had not worked on anything useful in weeks. His tools were scattered around him, untouched, and many of his machines stood in the corners, broken and unfinished. He had once been a man full of ideas. Years ago, he had worked on colony ships that traveled between stars. He built engines that carried people to safer worlds. He believed his hands could shape the future. People respected him then. They asked for his help. He had a place among them, but that time was gone. Now Sam lived on the edge of a small settlement that barely noticed him. His workshop was no longer filled with busy workers or curious visitors. It was filled only with silence, dust, and memories. His neighbors had stopped asking for repairs because he rarely finished them. He had promised to fix their farming machines, their heating systems, even their water pumps. But every promise ended the same way, a pile of parts left half-assembled. Sam had lost something inside himself, something that once pushed him forward. The truth was simple. He had failed too many times. He had poured his savings into designs that never worked, into machines that burned out or collapsed. People who once trusted him turned away. They said he was no longer the man they remembered. Each word cut him deeper than the last. Over time, his belief in himself broke apart. Now he spent most days lying on the floor, staring at the ceiling, wondering if there was any reason to keep trying. The workshop told the story of his fall better than words ever could. A pile of gears sat on one table, covered in grease. An engine frame rested against a wall, missing half its parts. A small drone once meant to help miners lay in a corner with wires hanging loose like torn veins. Dust coated everything. Even the furnace at the far side burned only faintly, as though it too had grown tired. Sam closed his eyes. His body felt heavy, like it was made of stone. Sometimes he thought of leaving the workshop behind and walking into the endless desert outside the settlement, but even that felt pointless. Where would he go? Who would notice if he disappeared? The stars above seemed far away, unreachable. He felt like a man who had already vanished, only his shadow left behind. Still, a small part of him remembered what life had once been. A time when people cheered his inventions, when children came to watch his machines move, when the hum of engines filled him with pride. That memory would not leave him, but it hurt more than it helped. It was like a wound that refused to close. Every time he thought of the past, he remembered how far he had fallen. The settlement outside his door was alive with noise, but Sam barely heard it. Traders came and went, bringing food, tools, and fuel. Farmers worked their fields with old machines. Children played near the fences. The world moved on without him. He stayed in his workshop, trapped in silence. He tried once a week ago to start a new project. He had placed a small sphere on the workbench, planning to build a power core that could run for years. It was an idea he had carried for a long time. For one moment, he thought he felt the old fire return. He picked up his tools and began working. But his hands shook, his mind clouded, and soon the pieces slipped apart. The machine fell into another pile of failure. That was the last time he tried. Now he lay on the floor again, staring at the ceiling, too tired to rise. His thoughts were empty. The workshop was quiet, only the steady drip of water breaking the silence. It felt like the world had ended inside these walls. He whispered to himself, though no one was there to listen. Maybe I should stop. Maybe it is better to let it all go. His voice sounded weak, cracked, and broken. He closed his eyes again. The day outside slowly faded into night. The faint glow from the furnace dimmed until it was little more than embers. Shadows stretched long across the walls. Sam did not light the lamps. He lay still, letting the darkness surround him. For him, there was nothing to wait for, nothing to rise for. Hope had left this place long ago. He thought of one last thing before sleep claimed him, a wish he had held deep inside, though he never said it aloud. He wished for something, anything, to give him a reason to move again. A reason to build. A reason to live. But as he drifted into restless sleep, he did not know that his wish was already on its way. Somewhere out in the storm, a small creature searched for shelter, its tiny body cold and weak. And soon, it would find its way to his broken workshop, and his life would never be the same again. The night storm rolled over the settlement with heavy rain and sharp winds. The sound of thunder echoed across the desert plains, shaking the windows of old houses and rattling the thin metal sheets of Sam's workshop. Inside, Sam sat near the weak furnace, staring into the low flames. He did not feel fear of the storm. He had seen many worse during his time on other worlds. What he felt instead was the same emptiness that had followed him for years. Then came a sound that did not belong to the storm. A faint scratching. Sam lifted his head slowly. He thought at first it was just loose metal outside, dragged by the wind, but then it came again, sharper, steady, like small claws tapping against the door. His tired eyes narrowed. He had not had visitors in months. The settlers rarely came to him anymore. None of them would stand outside his door in a storm like this. The scratching returned, followed by a weak, almost pitiful sound, half like a whimper, half like a hiss. Sam stood, his joints stiff from lying on the floor for too long. He moved to the door, his steps heavy. For a moment he considered ignoring it. Whatever was out there, animal or wanderer, was not his problem. Yet something inside pushed him to check. He unlatched the metal lock and pulled the door open. The wind hit him first, cold and sharp. Then he saw it. A small creature crouched just beyond the doorway. Its body was curled, scales shining faintly even under the dim light from the furnace. The scales were not smooth like polished stone, but rough, coated with dirt and ash. Its wings were too small to carry it, folded tight against its back. Its eyes, wide and glowing faintly with a strange inner light, met his. Sam froze. He had read of creatures like this in old books, stories of beasts that once roamed human colonies long ago, thought to be myth more than truth. Dragons. Yet this one was not the fearsome giant from legends. It was small, weak, shivering in the cold rain. The hatchling made a soft sound again, low and broken. Sam's first thought was to close the door. He had enough of his own problems. He did not need another mouth to feed, another broken thing to care for. But the creature's eyes held him in place. They did not hold pride or fire. They held something he recognized all too well: loneliness. Slowly, Sam opened the door wider. The hatchling hesitated, then took a trembling step forward, leaving wet prints on the dusty floor. It smelled faintly of smoke and damp air. Sam stepped aside and let it move toward the furnace. The creature curled up near the faint glow, pressing its thin body close to the heat as though afraid the fire would vanish. Sam shut the door against the storm. He turned and looked at the small figure now lying near the fire. "What are you?" he muttered softly. Of course, the hatchling did not answer. It only shifted its wings and let out a tiny sigh, almost like relief. For a while, Sam stood still, unsure what to do. He had not cared for anything in years, but his hands, almost without thought, reached for an old pot. He placed it near the furnace, filled it with water, and heated it. Then he brought what little food he had, dried roots, a small piece of bread. He broke the bread into crumbs and placed it near the hatchling. At first, the creature did not move. Then its nose twitched, and slowly it reached forward, taking the crumbs into its mouth. It chewed weakly, as though unused to eating. Sam watched, his chest tightening with a strange feeling he had almost forgotten: concern. When it finished, the hatchling curled tighter, letting its small head rest on its tail. Its breathing slowed. Within moments, it was asleep. Sam sat down on his workbench, staring at the small form beside the furnace. He should have felt foolish. A grown man, once an inventor of star engines, now sitting in silence while a strange creature slept in his workshop. But instead, he felt something else. The room did not feel quite as empty as before. The sound of the storm outside no longer seemed so loud. He rubbed his chin, looking at the creature's dirty scales. "Ash," he whispered. The name came to him without thought. It matched the soot that clung to the hatchling's body and the faint scent of smoke in the air. He did not know if the creature would stay. He did not even know if it would live through the night. But if it did, it had a name now. Sam leaned back on the bench, letting his tired eyes close. For the first time in a long while, he was not completely alone in the dark. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside the workshop, a faint new spark had been lit. Small, fragile, but alive. Morning light entered the workshop through the cracks in the roof. Sam woke slowly, his body stiff from sleeping on the bench. For a moment, he forgot the night before. Then he heard a soft sound by the furnace. He turned his head and saw the small dragon hatchling curled tightly, its chest rising and falling with slow breaths. It was still there. Sam sat up, rubbing his eyes. The creature looked even smaller in the light. Its wings were folded close, and its scales no longer shimmered in the same way. They looked dull, almost gray with ash and dirt. It looked fragile, like a bird that had fallen from its nest. Sam moved carefully so he would not wake it. He poured water into a cup and drank. His mind turned again to the question he had asked himself last night. Why had it come here? Dragons, even hatchlings, were not supposed to be real. They belonged to stories told by travelers around campfires. Yet here one was, asleep on his floor. The hatchling stirred and opened its glowing eyes. It blinked at Sam, then lifted its head. For a moment, both man and creature simply looked at one another. Sam raised his hand slowly, palm open. The hatchling sniffed the air but did not move closer. Instead, it stretched its thin neck and made a soft clicking sound. Neither threat nor fear. "I guess you are hungry," Sam said quietly. He took a piece of dry bread from his shelf and broke it into smaller bits. He placed them near the hatchling. It hesitated, sniffed the crumbs, then began to eat. Its movements were weak but steady. Sam felt a small warmth in his chest as he watched. It was a feeling he had not known for years. He found himself speaking aloud, though he had grown used to silence. "So, Ash, that is your name now. If you plan to stay, you should know this workshop is a mess. But maybe we can change that." The hatchling lifted its head as if it had understood. Its small eyes glowed faintly in the dim room. Days passed and Ash remained. Each morning Sam found it near the furnace. Each night he gave it food. At first he offered only scraps, but then he began hunting small animals near the edge of the desert to keep the hatchling stronger. He had not gone hunting in years, but for Ash he found the strength. Slowly, the bond between them grew. The hatchling began to follow him across the workshop, its claws clicking softly against the floor. When Sam picked up a wrench or a piece of metal, Ash watched closely, tilting its head as though curious. Once when Sam dropped a tool, Ash pushed it back toward him with its nose. Sam laughed, a sound that felt strange to his throat. He could not remember the last time he had laughed. "You want to help, do you?" Sam said. Ash gave a short chirp in reply. Sam began to work again, not on grand projects but on small repairs. He fixed the broken drone in the corner, and though it did not fly far, its wings moved again. Ash watched every motion, and when the drone lifted a few feet from the ground, the hatchling let out a sound that was almost like delight. The workshop, once heavy with silence, now felt alive. The sound of tools, the faint crackle of the furnace, and the quiet chirps of the hatchling filled the space. Sam no longer spent hours lying on the floor. He still grew tired, but he felt a reason to rise each day. One evening, as the sun sank beyond the desert horizon, Sam sat near the doorway with Ash by his side. The sky was painted with red and gold. The hatchling stretched its wings wide for the first time. Though too small to fly, the motion was strong, filled with promise. Sam reached out and placed his hand gently on its back. "You are stronger than you look," he whispered. Ash turned its head toward him and pressed its snout against his arm. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke louder than words. Trust had begun to grow between them. Still, questions filled Sam's mind. Where had the hatchling come from? Was it the last of its kind, or were more hidden somewhere out in the vast desert? And if others learned that he sheltered such a creature, what would they do? He knew the settlement valued anything rare. Some might see Ash not as a living being, but as a prize. For now, he pushed those thoughts away. The night was calm and the hatchling was safe. That was enough. When he closed the door and returned to the furnace, Ash curled up again on the warm floor. Sam sat beside it, listening to the steady sound of its breathing. He felt something shift deep inside him, something he thought was gone forever. Hope. It was small, fragile, and uncertain, just like the creature that had entered his life. But it was alive, and that was enough to change everything. The days turned into weeks, and the bond between Sam and Ash grew stronger. The once silent workshop now carried the sound of tools, the crackle of the furnace, and the soft chirps of the hatchling. Sam found himself repairing things again, not for money or recognition, but because Ash made him feel alive. He wanted the workshop to shine again, not just for himself, but for the little creature that had chosen him. Ash grew slowly but noticeably. Its wings stretched wider, its scales gained a faint shimmer, and its steps grew steadier. It followed Sam everywhere, watching every turn of a wrench, every strike of a hammer. Sometimes it tilted its head in curiosity, as though trying to learn. Other times it nudged a tool closer to his hand, as if reminding him not to give up. Sam still carried doubts about the future. Yet each time Ash pressed its snout against his arm or curled by his side near the furnace, those doubts softened. For the first time in years, he felt that maybe tomorrow held something worth waiting for. Then, one night, something happened that changed everything. The settlement was quiet, its lamps flickering in the distance when Sam sat working on a broken heating coil. Ash dozed near the furnace, its body glowing faintly in the dim light. The storm outside had passed, leaving only a sharp wind. Sam bent over his workbench, focused on the coil. Suddenly, a loud crash shook the air outside the workshop. Sam stiffened. He heard voices, rough, low, and unfriendly. Raiders. They often wandered near the settlement, searching for food, fuel, or anything they could steal. Sam's heart tightened. He had little worth taking, but raiders did not always come for things. Sometimes they came for destruction itself. He quickly pushed the furnace lower and moved toward the door. Ash stirred, opening its glowing eyes. Sam raised his hand to keep it calm. "Stay quiet," he whispered. The shadows of the raiders passed outside, their boots crunching on the sand. Sam held his breath. He hoped they would move on. But then came the sound of metal clanging against the side of the workshop. One of them had struck the wall with a weapon. Ash let out a soft growl, a sound Sam had never heard before. Its wings twitched and a faint spark escaped its mouth. Sam's eyes widened. He crouched beside it, whispering quickly, "No, stay calm. They will leave." But the raiders did not leave. One of them tried the door, pulling hard at the handle. The weak lock rattled. Sam felt panic rise in his chest. He had no real defense. His machines were unfinished. His tools were not weapons. If they forced their way in, he and Ash would be trapped. Before Sam could act, Ash rose to its feet. Its body shook, but its eyes burned brighter. It opened its small mouth, and a sudden burst of light flashed inside. Then, with a sound like air tearing, a stream of sparks burst forth, scattering across the floor in front of the door. Sam froze. The raiders shouted in surprise. One cursed and backed away. Another hit the door harder, but the sparks had already left a mark. The wood smoked where the tiny flames touched it. Ash's body trembled. It looked at Sam as if waiting for his reaction. Sam could barely breathe. The old stories he once thought were myths came rushing back to him. Dragons were not only creatures of scale and wing, they carried fire inside them. The raiders muttered and argued outside, but soon their steps grew distant. Perhaps the sight of sparks through the cracks had frightened them. Perhaps they thought someone inside was armed. Either way they left, their voices fading into the night. Sam turned to Ash. The hatchling lowered its head, looking both weak and ashamed. But Sam reached out and touched its back gently. His voice was low, filled with awe. "You saved us." Ash leaned against him, breathing heavily. The sparks had drained its strength, but there was no mistaking what Sam had seen. The small creature was more than rare, it was powerful. That night, Sam did not sleep. He sat by the furnace, Ash curled against his side, and thought about what this meant. The hatchling was no ordinary stray. If anyone learned of its power, they would come for it. Settlers, traders, raiders, even off-worlders. They would not see Ash as a living being, but as a prize, a weapon, or a tool. Sam's chest tightened at the thought. He could not allow that. Ash had given him a reason to live again. In return, he would protect it no matter the cost. When dawn came, Sam rose with a new purpose. He began to work with focus he had not felt in years. He built small shields for the windows, strengthened the locks on the doors, and even started designing tools that could serve as defenses. His workshop, once a place of failure, became alive with energy. Ash followed him as always, watching, learning, sometimes chirping in delight when sparks flew from his machines. But now Sam looked at the hatchling differently. Not just as a companion, not just as a spark of hope, but as something greater, a partner. The discovery of fire had changed humanity once before. Now perhaps it would change his life again. Weeks passed after the night Ash first showed its power. Sam had grown used to the warmth of the hatchling beside him, and the spark it brought to his life. He had repaired old machines, built new tools, and even started designing small protective devices for the workshop. The work made him feel alive again, and Ash had become both companion and student, watching every movement, learning without words. But the quiet of the settlement would not last. It started with whispers. Traders passing through mentioned a strange creature seen near the edges of the desert. They described glowing eyes, small wings, and faint sparks of fire. Some thought it was a trick of the storm or a mirage. Others spoke in low voices, certain they had glimpsed something real. The rumors spread slowly, carried by wind and curiosity, until they reached the ears of people who would see Ash as more than a curiosity. Sam noticed the change first one afternoon. As he worked on a small engine, he heard the hum of engines above. He looked out the small workshop window and saw a sleek patrol ship hovering over the settlement. It was not a trader nor a simple delivery craft. The ship had markings he had only seen on corporate and security vessels, official, powerful, and dangerous. He froze. His mind raced. They know, he whispered to himself. They know about Ash. Ash stirred beside him, sensing his tension. Its small body pressed against his side, and its glowing eyes followed his every movement. Sam realized he had to act quickly. If outsiders came to take Ash, they would not care about its life, only its value. He could not let that happen. He moved quietly through the workshop, checking the doors and windows. The patrol ship circled slowly, its engines humming low but steady. Sam could see the figures inside the cockpit, their attention fixed on his workshop. It was only a matter of time before they landed. "Stay close," Sam said softly to Ash. The hatchling looked at him, as though understanding. It pressed closer, its warmth a comfort against the fear building in him. Sam worked quickly, gathering scraps of metal, old pipes, and spare tools. He began building barriers near the entrance, creating traps that could slow intruders. It was not much, but it might buy them time. Ash watched, occasionally chirping or nudging him toward tools it thought would help. Together they moved with purpose, a strange team against an unknown threat. Hours passed, and the ship finally landed. The dust from its engines rose like smoke, covering the settlement in a thin haze. Figures in uniform stepped onto the sand, their boots heavy and deliberate. Sam tightened his grip on a metal rod he had shaped into a makeshift staff. Ash crouched behind him, small but ready. The first figure moved toward the door, scanning the workshop. Sam took a deep breath, preparing himself for what might come. But he noticed something he had not expected. Ash stepped forward just a little, its tiny wings spreading slightly. Sparks danced in its mouth, lighting the space like fireflies. The intruders paused, their eyes widening at the sight. Sam realized then that Ash was more than just a companion. It was a force, a being that could stand against them if needed. His heart swelled with pride and determination. He would protect the hatchling no matter the cost. The intruders tried the door. They pulled hard, expecting an easy entry. But Sam had reinforced it. The door held, and Ash let out a warning chirp, sparks flickering faintly across the floor. The intruders hesitated, unsure how to proceed. Sam knew they could not hold out forever. The patrol would send more reinforcements if they needed. He whispered to Ash, "We might have to fight, little one, but we are not afraid." "Not together." Ash pressed against him, its small head tilting as though agreeing. Sam felt a courage he had not known in years. This workshop, once a place of despair, had become a battleground of hope. He and Ash were not just survivors. They were defenders, guardians of something precious. The intruders retreated a few steps, unsure of the strange power inside the small hatchling. Sam realized that fear worked both ways. They feared Ash just as he had once feared the outside world. He made a silent promise no one would take Ash from him. Not raiders, not corporations, not the stars themselves. The patrol ship lifted its engines, kicking up more dust, but did not fire. The intruders whispered among themselves, then returned to the ship. It rose into the sky, leaving a trail of wind and sand behind. Sam and Ash stood together, watching until it disappeared beyond the horizon. Sam sank to the floor, exhausted but relieved. Ash curled against him, breathing softly. The danger was not gone, he knew. The world would always seek what it did not understand, but for the first time he felt ready to face it. With Ash at his side, he was not alone. He had purpose, strength, and a companion who had changed his life forever. Outside, the settlement continued as if nothing had happened. Traders returned, farmers worked, and children played. But inside the workshop, a new life had begun, a life of vigilance, courage, and hope. Sam no longer felt like a broken man on the floor. He had something to protect, something to fight for, and someone who had given him a reason to rise. The storm of the past had passed, and a new dawn waited for both of them. Sam and Ash would face the challenges together, ready for whatever came next. The night was dark and quiet, but Sam knew it would not last. The patrol ship had left, but the threat lingered. He could feel it in the air, a tension that made his skin prickle. Ash stayed close, its glowing eyes scanning the shadows outside the workshop. The small hatchling had grown stronger over the weeks, and now, even in the dim light, its wings stretched wider, its body ready for action. Sam moved quickly, preparing for the worst. He checked the doors and windows again, reinforced the weak spots, and placed tools and scrap metal where they could serve as traps. His hands were steady, his mind focused. The fear that had once paralyzed him was gone. Now it was replaced with determination. He would not let anyone take Ash. Not now, not ever. Then came the sound of engines again. This time it was louder, closer, more deliberate. Sam peeked through a crack in the window and saw multiple ships landing outside the settlement. Raiders, more organized and better armed than the last. They were not here for trade or curiosity. They were here to take what did not belong to them. Ash stepped forward, low to the ground, its small body trembling with energy. Sparks flickered faintly at the tip of its snout. Sam knelt beside it, whispering, "We are ready, little one. We can do this together." The hatchling pressed against him, a silent promise of trust. The raiders moved quickly toward the workshop. Sam watched as the first figure reached the door. He pressed a button on a small device he had built over the past week. A hidden trap swung into place, forcing the raider to stumble backward. Sam did not hesitate. He grabbed a metal rod ready to defend the entrance while Ash prepared to act. The first sparks flew from Ash's mouth. They were small at first, but bright, catching the raiders by surprise. One shouted in fear, trying to retreat, while another lunged forward. Sam swung his rod, knocking the attacker aside just as Ash let out another burst, scattering sparks across the floor. The small dragon moved with surprising speed, its tiny wings beating fast to balance as it dodged and attacked with fire. Sam realized something he had not known before. The hatchling was not just a companion. It was a fighter, brave and clever. It used its size and agility to its advantage, and its sparks kept the intruders cautious. Together, they formed a strange but effective team. Sam struck with tools, knocked weapons aside, and used every scrap of metal as a barrier, while Ash darted between shadows, flames flashing when needed. The raiders tried to regroup. One of them aimed a weapon at Sam, but Ash leaped forward, wings flaring, sparks erupting. The attacker stumbled back, dropping his weapon. Sam's heart raced, but he kept moving, blocking, striking, and guiding Ash through the fight. The workshop, once quiet and lifeless, was now alive with the sound of action, clanging metal, shouted words, and the hiss of sparks. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. The raiders were skilled, but they had underestimated the determination of a man and a small dragon who refused to be defeated. Each time they tried to enter, Sam had a trap ready, and Ash was always one step ahead, their teamwork flawless. Finally, the raiders began to retreat. One by one, they backed away, exhausted and frightened by the unexpected defense. Sparks from Ash danced across the walls as the hatchling released a final burst, reminding the intruders that they were not to be underestimated. The last of the raiders fled to their ships, leaving the settlement behind in silence. Sam sank to the floor, breathing heavily. Ash curled beside him, wings folded, scales glowing faintly. The little dragon was tired but unhurt. Sam reached out, running his hand along Ash's back. "You did it," he whispered, a smile spreading across his face. "We did it together." The workshop was a mess from the battle, but it was theirs. Broken tools, scattered scrap, and scorched floors could be repaired. What mattered was survival. What mattered was trust. What mattered was the bond they had built. Stronger than fear. Stronger than any threat from outside. As dawn approached, Sam sat by the furnace with Ash pressed against his side. The first light of morning filtered through the cracks in the roof. The small hatchling looked up at him, eyes bright with pride. Sam laughed softly, a sound of relief and triumph. For the first time in a long while, he felt truly alive. He knew the danger was not over. Others would come, curious, greedy, or cruel. But he also knew that together, he and Ash could face anything. They were no longer alone. They were a team, a force, a new hope rising from the ashes of fear and despair. Outside, the settlement continued its quiet life, unaware of the night's events. Inside, a man and a dragon hatchling had proven that courage and trust could overcome even the greatest threats. Sam finally understood that hope could return in the most unexpected ways, and that a life once lost to despair could be rebuilt with determination and friendship. For Sam and Ash, the workshop was no longer a place of failure. It was a place of strength, a home, and a symbol of their new beginning. The night had passed, and the first rays of sunlight spilled across the desert. Sam stood at the workshop doorway, looking out at the settlement. The air was calm, the dust from the previous night's battle settling slowly. The patrol ships were gone, the raiders had fled, and for the first time in weeks the world felt peaceful. Ash perched on the edge of the furnace, wings folded neatly against its back. Its small body glimmered in the morning light, and its glowing eyes followed Sam's every movement. The hatchling had grown stronger, braver, and more confident over the past weeks. It had become a companion, a protector, and a friend who had changed Sam's life completely. Sam breathed deeply, feeling the warmth of the morning and the weight of hope return to his chest. He looked at the mess of the workshop, scattered tools and scorch marks reminding him of the battle they had fought together. Yet none of it mattered. What mattered was survival, trust, and the new life they had built. He knelt beside Ash, running his fingers along the small dragon's scales. "We made it," he said quietly. "We really made it." Ash chirped softly, pressing its head against his hand. The sound was small, but to Sam it was the sweetest music he had ever heard. The settlement began to stir. Farmers tended their fields, traders prepared their carts, and children ran along the dirt roads. They did not know the events of the night before, and that was for the best. Sam did not need recognition or thanks. He needed only the presence of Ash and the knowledge that he had done what no one else could, protected a life that mattered more than his own pride or reputation. For the first time, Sam felt a sense of purpose he had not known in years. He began to repair the workshop, cleaning the floors, fixing broken tools, and organizing scattered parts. Ash followed him everywhere, nudging a wrench here, tapping a metal sheet there. Their teamwork had grown into an unspoken rhythm, silent yet powerful. As the morning sun climbed higher, Sam stepped outside with Ash on his shoulder. He looked out over the desert, thinking about the vast world beyond. There were stars, distant worlds, and adventures that he had long dreamed of. Before, those dreams had felt impossible. Now they seemed possible again. He had someone to share them with, someone to guide and protect, and someone who had given him a reason to rise each day. The small hatchling flapped its wings, testing the air. Though still too young to fly far, it seemed eager, ready to explore the world with Sam. He smiled, imagining the day when Ash would soar above the desert, carrying the sparks of life into the skies. Sam realized something important. The hatchling had changed him, but he had also changed Ash. The little dragon had learned trust, courage, and friendship. Together they had grown stronger. Together they had survived danger and found hope. He knew the future would not be easy. There would always be threats, curious outsiders, and challenges that neither of them could predict. But for the first time, Sam did not fear the unknown. He had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. He had learned that even the smallest creature, when given trust and care, could become powerful. He had learned that life, no matter how broken it seemed, could begin again. Ash chirped and stretched, its wings catching the light. Sam laughed softly, a full, warm sound that felt like a weight lifting from his chest. "One day you will fly higher than the rooftops of this settlement," he said, "and I will be right here watching you." The hatchling responded with a small spark that danced across the air, bright and full of life. Together, they returned to the workshop. Sam picked up a tool and Ash nudged a piece of metal toward him. They worked side by side, building, repairing, and creating. Each movement, each spark of fire, each beat of wings reminded Sam of the journey they had shared. The nights of fear, the days of loneliness, the moments of courage and trust. By evening, the workshop was alive again. Machines hummed softly, tools clinked, and the furnace glowed warmly. Ash curled up beside the fire, tired but content. Sam sat on the floor nearby, watching the hatchling sleep. He realized that he had not just found a companion. He had found family, hope, and a purpose that no one could take away. The desert stretched out beyond the settlement, endless and full of possibilities. Sam knew that he and Ash would face challenges ahead, but he also knew that together they could face anything. Life had given them a second chance, and they would not waste it. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Sam whispered to the small dragon beside him. "This is just the beginning, Ash. A new dawn is ours, and together, we will rise." The hatchling shifted, blinking its glowing eyes at him, and pressed its head against his hand, a silent agreement. A promise of many adventures yet to come. Sam smiled, feeling a warmth he had not known for years. The workshop, once a place of despair, was now a home filled with hope, courage, and life. He had been broken, but with Ash he had found strength, and as the night sky stretched above them, he knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. The world was wide, the future uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Sam believed in tomorrow. He believed in himself. He believed in Ash. And he knew that their journey had only just begun.